Today, let's dive into a masterpiece of Indian satire from the legendary HARISHANKAR PARSAI. It's a story from his collection Nithale Ki Diary, and it asks this wild question. What if being a good person was, well, what if it was actually a crime? It's a hilarious and, honestly, a pretty unsettling look at a world that's been turned completely upside down.
All right, so let's just jump right in with the question that sounds completely absurd, but it's really at the very heart of this story. What if being a genuinely virtuous person, doing the right thing, was the most disruptive, the most criminal act you could possibly commit?
And to explore that, we have to meet our hero, Seth Gabargadas. Now, this is a man of such extreme principles that his worldview is, let's just say, a little out there. He's a patriot, he's a generous soul, but his virtues are so absolute, so over the top, that they actually start to become a threat to his society.
So we first meet Seth G right after a national emergency has been declared. A defense fund committee comes to see him and they find him performing his patriotic duty in a very, very unique way.
So how is he helping the nation? By doing push-ups on his veranda to fight the enemy, of course, and by weeping for Mother India. In fact, he actually sets a timer, 2 hours every single day, just to cry for the nation. I mean, this is performative patriotism dialed up to 11, and it's just the beginning.
But all this patriotic performance is about to get a real-world test. See, the committee that's visiting, they're not there to watch him cry. They're there to ask for a donation for the war effort.
And knowing his intensity, the committee plays it safe. They cautiously ask for 5,000 rupees. Seems like a perfectly reasonable request for the defense fund.
But Sitchi doesn't do reasonable. Nope. He just whips out his checkbook and writes a check for 1 lakh rupees. That is a staggering 20 times what they asked for. And this is where HARISHANKAR PARSAI's satirical genius just takes off. The committee isn't grateful. They're absolutely furious. They actually accuse him of violating the ordinary morality of donation, and then they literally run away, terrified he might try to force even more money on them.
One of the committee members even warns him directly. He says his excessive virtue, like how he intentionally overstates his income to pay more taxes, and now this massive donation, is making the public angry. Think about that. In this town, his goodness is basically a public nuisance. And sure enough, news of the 1 lakh check spreads through the city like wildfire. But the reaction isn't admiration or praise. No, it's discontent, anger, and suspicion. People are genuinely upset by his generosity.
But Seth G? Oh, he's just getting started. A few days later, he decides to escalate his crime. He shows up at the bank with thousands of tolas of gold, all of his family's wealth, right down to his wife's sacred Mangalsutra necklace, and demands they accept all of it for the nation. He even threatens to go on a hunger strike if they refuse his donation.
The whole thing just devolves into chaos. It gets so bad that the city collector has to personally intervene, begging Seth G to stop his upside-down actions. Just imagine that. A government official is pleading with a man to stop being so charitable because it's disrupting public order.
So all of this whole spectacle, it's all building up to his final and most outrageous act, the truly unforgivable crime of being an honest businessman during a national crisis.
Okay, so Setchi is a major stockist of goods. During an emergency, you know the unspoken rule, right? The universal expectation is that businessmen will hoard supplies and jack up prices to profit from the situation. Instead, Setchi does the unthinkable. He posts a list of fair prices right outside his shop and refuses to raise them by a single paisa.
And this is the breaking point. An angry mob of thousands gathers outside his shop. But here's the crazy part. They aren't there to protest high prices. They are there to demand them. They're chanting, "Raise prices! Hoard the stock! Take down that price list!"
The collector shows up again, this time with armed police. He tells Sethaji that his honesty has created a law and order crisis. He gives him a 5-minute ultimatum, take down the price list and restore normalcy. And Sethaji, he says nothing. He just stands his ground in silence.
So what happens? For the crime of maintaining fair prices and refusing to exploit the public, Seth Gabargadas is arrested. And the charge? Threatening the peace and security of the nation under the Defense of India Act. Let that sink in. His virtue is now officially a crime against the state.
Okay, so Sefji's arrest is the brilliant, absurd climax of this whole thing. But this isn't just some funny story, is it? HARISHANKAR PARSAI, with his incredible wit, is holding up a mirror to society. So what is he really showing us here?
Well, first, he's just skewing performative patriotism. Society absolutely loves the show of virtue. You know, the push-ups, the public tears. But the moment someone acts on those values in a way that demands real sacrifice, that very same society is profoundly threatened.
And this really gets to the core of societal hypocrisy. We build this system that praises honesty in public, but it runs on corruption in private. So when someone like Sethji actually lives by the rules we claim to value, he isn't a hero. He's a threat, because his integrity holds a mirror up to everyone else's little compromises.
Parsai also gives us this chilling look at the madness of crowds. He shows how a mob, totally united by a shared, corrupt self-interest, can invert all logic. They literally demand that a shopkeeper raise his prices. They're insisting on being exploited, because that's the normal and expected order of things.
So in the world that Seth Govardhan Das lives in, every conventional virtue gets twisted into its opposite. His extreme charity is seen as an injustice. His radical honesty is a threat to public order. And his unwavering commitment to his principles, well, that's treated as an act of rebellion.
And this is where Parsai's satire leaves us with this deeply unsettling question that feels just as relevant today as it ever was. As the slide asks, when society itself is walking backwards, what does it really mean to walk straight?